Everybody. My name is Regina. I use she, her pronouns, and this is my very first homily. I feel very honored to share my words with y'all, and I want to thank you in advance for taking the time out of your day to make it to church today. Around this time last year, one of my best friends and amazing comrade, Tito Leedon, went back to the Bahamas. Tito lived in the United States for over 6 years. He was a dedicated organizer, a brilliant filmmaker, a humorous friend, and a person to always lean on. He was personally affected by Donald Trump's immigration policies. Tito was here on an H-1B visa, which meant his employment was sponsored. Employers had to pay exorbitant fees just to keep good, hardworking employees around. His job wouldn't let him do that, so he applied to FSU, and for one reason or another, he was not accepted into the program. I was absolutely devastated. One of my best friends was leaving the country, not on his own volition, but because of factors outside of his control, because of politicians who didn't care about regular working class people. I keep in contact with Tito. We chat about life, friends, careers, and whether he will ever come back. Given how militarized border police and immigration custom departments operate, he's not coming back to the United States. I ask him how the Bahamas is, and he tries to keep a positive attitude. There's always a little bit of sadness behind his text messages. During hurricane season, I was so worried. I saw news reports of heavy flooding and devastating winds headed for the Bahamas. He was resigned and said, "It is what it is." He dealt with flooding for weeks before the hurricanes even came. Sometimes the power would go out. He used to beg his parents to go with him to London or Canada, but the Bahamas was their home. But as the effects of climate change got worse, they finally saw the writing on the wall, or really the water reaching their knees for days at a time. My friend left the Bahamas because of imperialist policies from countries like the United States and Britain that want to oppress a small black nation for their own economic needs. There are no jobs in the Bahamas, and countries like that never had the ability to develop their own self-determination because it was a threat to the ruling global capitalist class. He had to go back to the Bahamas because of the same capitalist system that viewed him as unworthy and would rather him be exploited like many other migrant workers. My friend dealt with constant hurricanes and destruction because the ruling class of imperialist countries like the United States and Britain did not care about the environmental destruction their militaries and multi-billion-dollar industries caused to regular people. The most oppressed, colonized countries are dealing with the worst consequences of climate change, even though they contribute the least. How can we fight against the real issue of climate change when people are starving despite working 40 hours a week? How can we fight against rising sea levels when immigrants are being kidnapped in broad daylight? How can we fight against the real issue of unpredictable hurricanes when people are worried about how they will pay their next light bill? It's not like climate change is unimportant to working class people. It's that the mainstream climate justice movement has been so inaccessible and not understanding of the real problems of working class people. Too often, we blame poor people for not recycling enough, eating too much meat, using too much water, or not driving expensive electric vehicles, when the real problems are the polluters and the climate destructionists that sit on the board of multi-billion-dollar corporations. Climate justice cannot be a fight in itself. World-renowned Australian Indigenous artist, activist Leela Watson said, "If you have come here to help me, you're wasting your time. But if you have come because your liberation is bound with mine, then let us work together." The fight for climate justice must be the fight against police brutality. It must be the fight for gender justice. It must be the fight for working class people. It must be the fight for liberation of all people. Climate justice is not about charity or saving others. It's about understanding there is no separation between us. Last month, the US-Israeli war on Iran, Israel bombed an oil depot that cascaded a black rain of petroleum on the Iranian people. Who suffers the most? It will not be the politicians who order the strikes. It will not be the corporations that profit from oil and war. It is the people that suffer the most. It is families breathing in toxic air. It is children whose skins burn, whose lungs will fill with poison. It is communities that will live for years with birth defects, shortened lifespans, and lost children. Climate change is not just about carbon. It's about who is forced to live near pollution. It is about whose homes are destroyed first. It's about whose labor is exploited and whose lives are considered disposable. That is why climate justice is inseparable from racial justice, from gender justice, from peace. Because all of these struggles are about the same question: whose lives are valued and whose are not. There's a poem by Robert T. Wetson on the UU website called The Web of Life. It goes like this. There is a living web that runs through us to all the universe, linking each with each and through all life on the distant stars. Each knows a little corner of the world and lives as if this were his all. We no more see the farther reaches of the threads than we see of the future, yet they're here. Touch but one hand, no matter which. The thoughtful eye may trace to distant lands, its firm continuing strand, yet lose its filaments as they reach out. But find at last it coming back to him from who it led. We move as in a fog, aware of self, but only dimly conscious of the rest, as they are close to us in sight or feeling. New objects loom up for a time, fade in and out. Then sometimes, as we look on unawares, the fog lifts, and there's the web in shimmering beauty, reaching past all horizons. We catch our breath, stretch out our eager hands, and then in comes the fog again, and we go on, feeling a little foolish, doubting what we had seen. The hands were right. The web is real. Our folly is that we soon forget. Capitalism does everything possible to unweave the web between all of us. The web is real, yet we feel so disconnected. We're disconnected from our neighbors, our coworkers, sometimes even our friends and family. This is called alienation. The idea that in a society driven by profit, we become separated from what we create, from one another, and even from Earth itself. We see this alienation everywhere. We see it in industries that extract from the earth without care for what is left behind. We see it in systems that treat workers as disposable. We see it in borders that separate people from opportunity, from safety, from community. And we see it in my friend Tito, a man who gave his labor, his care, his activism to this country, only to be cast out when he no longer fit the ruling class's needs. Now he lives, sometimes without power, in a home that floods, in a country that did not cause this crisis. Tito is my brother. As a Haitian American, I know the reality that Tito faces. Haiti is one of the countries most affected by climate change, yet it contributes almost nothing to it. Haiti has suffered so much from flooding and hurricanes. The flooding is so severe because there are no forests or topsoil. It's estimated that between 3 to 20% of the land is forested. This deforestation causes severe soil erosion. Haitians aren't doing this because we don't care about the environment or nature, we're forced to rely on charcoal to survive. The plight of the Haitian people is rarely discussed. And on news reports, we learn about earthquakes, mudslides, gang violence, or cholera. And we chalk up these horrific stories about Haiti to just being another third world country that can't get its affairs in order. If you know about Haiti, you know that it was the first free black republic that ever overthrew slavery. And what did France do in response? Demand that Haiti pay over 150 million gold francs to our colonizers. To quote an article, an in-depth 2022 investigation by the New York Times found that Haiti's payments to France amounted to the modern equivalent of roughly $560 million. Had that money been retained in Haiti and invested domestically, it could have added more than $20 billion to the country's economy over time. Haiti, like many colonized countries, never had the chance to develop its own economy. This economy could have been a green industrialized society. Haiti will not know that future for now, because countries like the US, Canada, and France oppressed Haiti through a history of military interventions, backing coups, propping up dictators, and forcing economic policies that undermine local agriculture. The United States has even imposed puppet governments, controlling and funding foreign security forces that perpetrate instability, deporting thousands of refugees, while fueling gang violence with illegal weapons flows. The United States supported the brutal dictator Papa Doc because he was anti-communist. And internal CIA reports acknowledge Papa Doc's venality and corruption and his utter disregard of the welfare of the Haitian people, yet they still continue to support him. When it rains in Haiti, it does not nourish the land. It destroys it. It turns into mudslides that takes lives. Haiti has been made vulnerable through poverty, imperialism, and exploitation, through centuries of being denied the ability to build a stable infrastructure. All this because rich capitalists would rather see the Haitian people starve than have any bit of dignity. We have to acknowledge the painful effects our tax dollars have on other countries. That isn't to blame anyone or ask you to save Haiti, but to realize our interconnectivity. We have so much more in common with the people of Haiti, Iran, the Bahamas, Palestine, Mexico, all the oppressed people of the world, than we do with the big polluters and multinational corporations that would rather squeeze us for every single penny we produce than to have sustainable energy. The ruling class does not want us to see ourselves in Tito or in me or a Palestinian. Thomas Sankara said, "Those who live in a palace do not think about the same things, nor in the same way as those who live in the hut. The struggle to defend the trees and forests is above all a struggle against imperialism, because imperialism is the arsonist setting fire to our forests and savannas." What he is naming is something we already feel. The people who make decisions about extraction, about war, about pollution, are not the ones living with the consequences. They do not have to wade through the floodwaters. We do. That is alienation. That is what it looks like when profit is valued over people and over the earth itself. Alienation is the opposite of the web. The web tells us we are connected. Alienation tells us we are separate. And when we believe we are separate, it becomes easier to exploit, easier to pollute, easier to ignore suffering, because we no longer see ourselves one another. And when I think about this, I do not think about an abstract issue. I think about Tito. Tito is not just a victim of climate change. He is caught in a capitalist system that doesn't value people. He is caught in a system where corporations practice profit over people. He is caught in a system that values militarized borders more than clean air and peace. He, like many of us, is caught in a system that denies human dignity. His story is climate justice. His story is about racial justice. His story is about immigration justice. His story is a story of our world. So when I think about climate change, I do not think about something distant. I think about my people. I think about land that cannot hold water anymore. I think about families rebuilding again and again. I think about the countries forced to suffer the consequences of a crisis it did not create. Tito is my brother because his story is not separate from mine. His country floods, mine collapses under the same forces. But I do not want you to walk away from this sermon feeling guilty and powerless. I want you to walk away feeling connected. Let's connect with the people who are most affected. Let's connect to the earth. Let's connect with each other. Because if the web is real, and it is, that means we are not alone in this world. It means our actions matter. It means our love matters. And it means when we fight for climate justice, we are fighting for social justice, for gender justice, for peace. You're not fighting against something. We are fighting for each other. That is where our power comes from. When we engage in real movement work to make the world better for us, we can see the connections between all of us so much more clearly. So climate justice is not just about what we recycle. It's about how we love. It's about whether we are willing to expand our circle of care to include the most oppressed among us. It's about whether we can build a world where no one is disposable, because justice, real justice, is what love looks like in public. Thank you.